You can always count on us to set you up the bomb, because we are Voyager, please, a hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
And I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, before we launch ourselves into this week's episode, I wanted to just thank all of our listeners who consistently tune in and week out, whether we are slogging our way through Someone to Watch Over Me or nerding out to Relativity, through our ups and through our downs. We appreciate you. And if you have a moment and you haven't shared this hateful voyage on social media, we would appreciate it. You know, wherever it is that you like to talk about your podcast, whether Facebook, Twitter, I don't know, Instagram, Smote Signals, whatever you do, that would be really cool. Or you can always just review us on iTunes, because that actually does help other people see the show. So we'd appreciate it.
We got some new developments going on in the world of Trek, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and I saw the very much better or for worse Voyager parallel there.
Bring the audience up to speed if there's anybody out there listening who doesn't know what's going on.
Well, the news was announced today, I believe, that a show that was previously announced, Star Trek Prodigies, which was going to be on Nickelodeon. It's going to be a kid-focused show, or like, you know, kids to tweens to young teens, whatever, that kind of demo, was not only moving forward, but was moving forward with the involvement of one Kate Mulgrew, a.k.a. Captain Janeway. It's an animated show, so it seems like it would be pretty easy to implement, but she's evidently going to factor into the show in some way.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's going to be a kid's show, so I guess that's fine. I mean, she's an easy figure to pluck out of the Star Trek canon and kind of insert into a sort of mentor mother figure in that kind of circumstance. You know, just off the cuff.
Is this going to be a Kurtzman secret hideout production?
I mean, I assume so, right? Like, all this stuff is coming out of Kurtzman's shop.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought he was basically, his budgets had been cut and everything was kind of getting blocked. You know, I'm so gun shy about any pre-existing character or property coming back in, like Lower Decks, which has gotten consistently better and better and better with each new episode that's come out. I respect, because it's a new property in a new place in the timeline, and you're not trying to retread old ground and abuse those old memories. You know, the mistakes are fresh, but the mistakes sit squarely on the shoulders of that show, unlike Picard, which has taken, you know, our personal favorite thing out into the highway and jumped and clapped as it was struck and run over time and time again by semis and, I don't know, school buses. You know, I'd like to be more excited about the news that Janeway's coming back, but I'm scared. I'm scared.
I think I've come full circle on it all. Like, I've gone from excited about this sort of thing to fearful of it to sure, I guess. Like, this stuff just doesn't count to me anymore, right? Like, I've broken through the I'm angry at this part of my grief, and it is what it is, right? For whatever reason, I don't know if Kurtzman's just got like secret nudes of all of the decision makers at fucking CBS, and he just can't get fucking fired. I don't know. I just don't get it. But it's evident he's not going anywhere, as much as you know, we want to hope and dream and believe that it might happen at some point. And because he's not going anywhere, Star Trek's going to be stuck in this awful spot where these creative minds that have no business touching the property are the ones guiding it. So if that's going to be the case, so be it. You know, can't take away all the other Trek from me. And if Kate Mulgrew wants to take a big fat paycheck to voice an animated version of herself, then good for her. You know,
certainly can't hate on that payday.
No, like good on her. Like, I hope all of the also ran Trek actors can go ahead and grab some of that glory for themselves, you know?
Yeah, well, like you said, maybe in a certain way, the pain and suffering has liberated us from the shackles of caring, and we
Yeah,
can
there's
sit back.
something liberating about having watched Picard and watching something that you love so much, as you so eloquently put, get run over by a bus, and
It's
it,
almost
it
like you, Joe, are a young Frank Castle, and you've just watched your family be brutally murdered, and you are now free of any common petty morality to reach out and punish all of those who would wrong you or do ill by your code of conduct.
if my
Maybe
fate is to be the Star Trek version of the Punisher, I would consider that
actually I take that back.
a
That would be, of
quite
course, 7 of 9.
oh man. Oh, that's another thing about Picard. It's just every week we see 7 of 9 and the growth of 7 of 9. It's going to be even worse next season, and you get to see why this character is so beloved. And then in retrospect, you just get to think back at the stupid jabroni circus episode where they're dressing up as French people, and you like see what they did to her character there, and it's just
Well,
mwah,
let's
beautiful.
let's give people a peek behind the curtain. We've been discussing what's going to happen when things wrap here in the world of Voyager, if we're going to continue, and if so, which direction we're going to continue in. And something we encountered earlier when we broke off to regrettably cover Picard, the question came up: do we continue calling the Picard episodes Star Trek, Voyager, please, or do we make something new? And I'm sure that's going to have to be a discussion we have again. But I'll go ahead and enter in a suggestion now. If we are to change from Voyager, please, that we just go with Star Trek Punisher.
Or just Trek Punisher.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like it. By the way, to let everyone know, Peter and I are resolved to continue the show after Voyager, which is gonna be soon. This is almost the end of season 5. So we've gotten probably another year worth of episodes to do. So, but all things being equal, we're very, very interested in continuing. What we'll review next, we don't know. It's a matter of continued discussion. But it's a good title idea that makes it a little bit differentiation. I like it.
But here and now, season 5, episode 25 or 24 if you're still in the Netflix timeline. Warhead.
So I think I can sum this up as Juggernaut, but decent. Like Juggernaut, but what if Bob Picardo? Like that's my take on it, right? Like wasn't Juggernaut the name of the last episode, or was it Dreadnought? It was Dreadnought.
Which one was
Dreadnought was the
Juggernaut? Juggernaut was
I,
the garbage scow one where the
that's right. Yeah. You're
Symphony of
right.
Space Pipes.
Dreadnought was the one where B'Elanna had to defuse her space bomb baby. And we hated it, and it was terrible. And this was
Not to be
Dreadnought.
confused with Prototype, where she has to destroy her space robot murder baby. And of course, then we had what was it, Alien Isolation one with the other murderous hologram she has to defuse.
Yeah, the one where it's on the garbage scowl. No, it's on the waste disposal ship, and it's like the waste disposal hologram or something.
Mm-hmm.
As yeah, it's the 4th episode that involves a murderous AI with B'Elanna, but this one has a lot more Bob Picardo, so it's pretty decent.
Is that only the
the
4th?
bottom.
I feel like there's been other situations where AI has tried to kill her.
I think this is the 4th explicit she is front and center with the murder AI that we've
Let's
had,
say
because
5th, because the space trucker episode, dark one, right? That's where that's the Jekyll and Hyde doctor where he tortures her.
Darkling, yeah.
Darkling.
But that wasn't that like a Cass focused one though too?
Listen, man, B'Elanna was strapped. I'm sorry, was incapacitated, laid out on the table, being neurologically tortured by the doctor. Like, it's a rogue AI. B'Elanna's in the pain tank with, again, striking resemblances to this one. I agree. It is a better version of Dreadnought. This is not an episode that really needed to happen in my book. I don't know who there has the fetish for B'Elanna being caught up in these things. Clearly, Harry Kim's front and center on this one, and spoiler alert, Garrett's the low point.
I think he starts out strong, but then sort of flounders a little bit. I liked the version of him of I'm going to be in charge and I'm going to do this away mission, and then like, yeah, I've been doing this for 5 years, Neelix. You cut me some fucking slack. I know how to beam down to a planet and investigate weird space shit. And then they just have him like take a weird level of ownership of all the bad shit that happens, and kind of shoehorn him into a role that he's ill suited, which is like as the negotiator, like
The lead.
the emotional lead, which is just not his thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
So we
like,
start
I think
off.
I would have liked this episode. I would have liked this episode a lot more if Dreadnought had never occurred. Particularly, I think I would have liked this episode more.
Yeah.
You know, I think just because it seems like such a retread of that, it's like, why? You know, like, you obviously know you did this fucking thing. You didn't forget you wrote that 4 years ago, did you? Come on, guys.
Well, and let's jump ahead here for a minute. At a certain point in the episode, it becomes clear that this AI is attached to a weapon, and is in fact is a weapon, which could potentially endanger the crew. And B'Elanna's sitting there on all these, and we're joking about it, but have we encountered a single AI outside of Starfleet that has not been a huge fucking problem to the crew? Like, the staff decisions to continue on the course they go along here is just some real record-setting levels of stupid, and it results in just major eye rolling. So let's get into the nitty gritty on this. The cold open, pretty great. You got Paris frantically trying to beg Neelix to bend the rules and spot him some replicator rations, which it's good to see that those are still a thing, and that we have not, some episodes are replicating things pretty willy-nilly, but it's nice to see them touch back on the limitation of product availability and the duress the crew is still feeling out there. But he has forgotten about his anniversary with B'Elanna, and he is now in a rush to try and put together a real fancy dinner. And at first, Neelix is kind of blowing him off, like, yeah, listen, you fool me once, shame on you, but after you swindled me on letting you replicate a swimming pool full of pork rinds, I'm not helping you out anymore.
It's a very understandable premise for the audience, right? Like, who hasn't had to rush to get a gift for someone that they had forgotten, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this sort of like plot detail is always kind of just one of those like audience surrogacy moments.
It did make me think, though, had they not been in the position where they are, where everything is a limited commodity and replicator rations and all that, and if it is just another day on the Enterprise, like, how hard it is to give people gifts. Tom had to spend weeks and weeks and weeks Chakotay spent weeks and weeks to replicate that pocket watch for Janeway back in, was it Year of Hell, right?
Correct.
Just, it's hard enough to buy gifts in my life that people like, let alone when you could just replicate whatever your wildest fantasy is. Like, I bet you there's a much better gift value for like crayon drawings and arts and crafts with elbow macaroni and
oh yeah, like personal items or like historic items too, right? Like, that would be the other big get, something that's actually real from like a time period rather than a replicated copy.
Very true.
That would be kind of like where the gift giving is at. But if it's like some kind of disposable thing that doesn't involve your personal time investment, it wouldn't really have much gift value. Like, Tom replicating a dinner for B'Elanna is pretty low effort, but if he had went out and did the Cisco way and actually cooked it his damn self, like, that would actually be very meaningful, because he could have replicated it, but instead he decided to take the time to demonstrate his appreciation for his girlfriend by cooking or something. But it's Tom, so he doesn't care that fucking much. He just has his stereotypical like whatever 20s sounding dinner set to pull on his quarters, and then grabs a bottle of wine and a flower and heads off on his merry way. But not before Ensign Kin comes in and says, "Hey, I need a pot of coffee because I'm gonna be the captain tonight." He is manning the bridge on the night shift.
We've talked about shifts. They've alluded before that he was running night shifts. I forget which episode. It's probably within the past 5 episodes.
It was night, I believe, was the last time it was explicitly mentioned he was on the night shift.
God, was it night? So that's season 5, episode 1. It's been longer than I thought. Then it's cool to see, right? Who's the B shift? Who's the C shift? We get introduced to a very lippy Ensign Jenkins, who is a attractive blonde that we've never seen before. I'm wondering if she's going to pop back up again. But Harry's a little tight wound, sitting in the big seat, asking for frequent status updates, and she just kind of spins around in her chair and is like, "Listen, let me talk freely. You need to chill the fuck out. It's night shift. Nothing ever happens here." You kind of get in shades of Lower Decks, right? It's also interesting seeing how one ensign interacts with another ensign, because yeah, he's acting captain, but at the end of the day, they're the same, rank and whatever. He starts lecturing about like, heavy is the head that wears the crown and the woes of command. I want to be like, yeah, listen, I already know about all this stuff, buddy. You might notice the red on my shoulders and the gold on yours.
Yeah, one of us is in the command division, the other is not.
They come across
they get a distress signal.
Yeah.
So Ensign Blonde Lady gets a ping on the communications array to say they're getting a distress signal a couple light years away. Harry makes the command decision to head off to investigate without waking up his boss. And they arrive on the scene. They can't find any life forms that could be issuing said distress call. So at that point, they know they got to beam down. So that he has to go wake up his boss. And we see Chakotay putting on his uniform as they're talking in the hallway. And
not a flattering look.
No. And they start discussing like, "Oh, hey, sorry I had to wake you up, but this is the situation." Chakotay's giving him an attaboy, like, "No, you did the right thing. I don't want you kids beaming into hazardous areas without a fucking chaperone, at least on the bridge. But you can handle the actually beaming down and investigating the hell caves this time, bud." And that's where Harry and Neelix and random crewman, apparently Timothy Lang is his name. For some reason, this guy got a fucking name.
He's been around a lot. I mean, to Voyager's credit, they have done a good job using the same extras consistently. Next gen, you had people transferring on and off the Enterprise constantly. Voyager, it's a closed ecosystem, and especially listening to Delta Flyers, the relationships that these guys had out of character with a lot of these extras, it's pretty crude. So Ensign Lang, or I will call him Crewman Jaw.
Hell of a jaw. Just a massive mound of jaw.
Woe be the fist that lands upon that, because I'm going to tell you which is going to break first. And it's not Neelix, it's him and the Doctor. And Kim. And I like the Doctor with a phaser too. Did you note that?
Yeah, I did. You're right. And Neelix talks to him in the hallway, but he doesn't beam down. You're right.
Yeah.
But the Doctor had a GAT, which only makes sense, right? Because there's a firefight, you might as well have the invincible guy have a gun. How many times have we said that?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time he shot up a room full of meat bags.
Future's End. But they beam down, and as noted, it's the classic Planet Hell caves, and they are taking a look around to see what's sending the distress signal, and that is when they come across a metal thing that is in the wall, and it's beeping at them. And like, what the fuck is this thing? And that's when the Doctor says, "Oh no, wait! I speak R2D2. It's speaking to me." and says it's intelligent and it's scared and it's wondering why it can't see or feel anything. And that's where they leave the teaser. So they set it up pretty quick, right? Like they go through. Harry's in command. Harry finds the problem. Harry beams down with the doctor and crewman Jawface, and then they find the MacGuffin. Boom. Credits.
The I can't see, I'm confused, I'm scared, help me, help me. Again, real shades of Prototype there with him and B'Elanna. They get back. There's some quick banter about why they shouldn't tell this thing it's in fact AI because they don't want to traumatize it. We've got some mashed together engineering psychology that I don't think really flies. And ultimately, Janeway has gotten out of bed, and first shift's relieving third shift. And Janeway's like, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, what's your orders? And she's like, well, you're the away team commander. You tell me. And it's like, man, Harry and anybody else who is at all reasonable should just be like, I recommend we forget this shit and focus on getting home, Captain.
It's like, yeah, like, oh, is it up to me? Yeah, fuck this thing. Let's go home. Like,
yeah,
this has got space danger written all the fuck over it.
We leave this piece of junk stuck in the wall where we found it, and we mind our own goddamn business.
Oh, yeah. So the doctor has discovered it's an artificial intelligence, and that's worked out approximately never for us. So fuck this. So let's go. Let's get the fuck out of here. Like, easy call.
The last time the doctor vouched for another AI, I seem to recall one of B'Elanna's hearts getting reached into and holographically squeezed in some sort of photonic Mortal Kombat finishing move.
I think that this is an artificial intelligence, so it's not like it's going to starve. And if its batteries run out, whatever. Whoever owns it can juice it back up. Let's go. Let's go. Because, we'll find this thing, and it's going to be like the holy object of some kind of like super space fascists. This is like how this works out for us. We don't need this in our lives. But no, instead, the doctor's like, but it's a person. It's an artificial intelligence. We have to help it, Howie. And he's like, okay, but only if we can beam it directly next to the warp core. But like, that's my compromise.
We can take fields.
But we have to put it next to the warp core. But we'll put a shield around it.
Not a cargo bay, not the shuttle bay, not the rear patio that everybody has to go smoke on. No, right next to the goddamn warp core.
As usual, right? But it's where you have all your most dangerous weapons, your pipes, your knives, your your alien intelligences.
Let's take a moment here and peek in the old memory alpha and see who made this thing. Because this next shot, if I didn't know any better, I'd say Frakes' fingerprints on this Warhead. Bran Branagh with some Kenneth Bewilder, John Kretschmer, never heard of him. They beam this thing on the ship, and we pick up to a walk and talk that's pretty badass. It's B'Elanna and the captain, I think, and maybe Kim in there too. And the camera is up in the Neelix, Jonas, Mortal Kombat fire
murder
pit.
loft.
The murder loft, aka Tom and B'Elanna's bang cave.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera's pointing down, and it tracks them as they walk through engineering, kind of zooming in on them as they walk through the part of the floor that's plexiglass, and then a nice down the warp core shot until eventually getting over. Very innovative camera work and very out of place for your average Voyager episode. And it's good enough that it distracts me from how ridiculous this situation is.
It's like such innovative camera moves also almost make me forget that this doesn't make any fucking sense.
So they start trying to work on this thing. The doctor finally breaks the news to the unnamed AI that it is in fact AI, and that they're going.
And also, this is where we have finally a nice clear shot of the thing, right? And obviously, we know the name of the episode, so maybe that's coloring our view of the things a little bit. But I don't know how any person from the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, or enlightened 24th century can possibly look at this thing after they beam it aboard and say, yeah, that's a fucking bomb, guys. That is 125% a fucking bomb.
No.
This is a bomb. This is the most bomb I have ever seen.
No.
Let's get rid of it because this is a bomb.
Listen, man, this is the loosey-goosey, sexy time 24th century. I'm sure those guys saw and said, you know what, this is just a big, shiny chrome jackhammer dildo.
It is it is a Borg dildo. Like this, when 7 of 9 needs to get down, it can accept no substitute.
Yeah, you look at this thing and you say, one way or another, this thing is going to fuck you. And it probably runs on diesel.
Well, bomb or explosive sexual aid, whatever it might be, it is, they're trying to figure out what's going on. You get a lot of the doctor talking to it. And, well, let's talk about the best part of the episode, which is obviously the doctor. Like, Picardo is called upon to play 2 different characters in this episode, the doctor and then the bomb later on. And whenever you ask an actor to do that, you have to, hope they're strong enough to differentiate their performances successfully. And he does a magnificent job. Like you get the doctor and he's very like happy, bubbly almost about this idea of like really like talking to this other artificial intelligence. And, he does a great job of just playing off this idea that he's speaking to an R2D2Es with this thing. And it's fun and it looks like, we're going off in a happy Trek direction.
Yeah.
And then the moment the bomb becomes a bomb and hijacks his program, he's like turns around on a dime and is clearly someone else. And it's well done in his part.
The shame of the episode is that for you to get to that point, the doctor has to be so stupid. The doctor has never encountered another AI that did not, like I said, turn out sour and try to kill the crew and ultimately rope him into some feeling of shared liability and how they got there. So there's a lot of lack of self-awareness to previous events, which is hard to get around. And I forget what the exact chain of it mentioned that it had a traveling companion. 7 of 9 and the captain scan the surface of the planet and they find a huge explosive crater and they're like, oh shit, maybe that thing isn't a big jackhammer dildo, maybe it's
maybe
bomb.
The thing that looks like a bomb is a bomb.
How crazy. And we need to probably deal with this somehow. And they have this meeting where it's my note in my notebook is this is a ship full of stupid people. Is everyone really this stupid? You've got a fucking bomb. You've again, Dreadnought. Like everybody in this room has dealt with this scenario minimum multiple of 2 times already.
Yeah, multiple times.
And you're going to let the doctor, who the captain barely acknowledges as people himself, hoodwink everybody into thinking that maybe this is something we should fuck around. Maybe we should endanger the lives of the entire crew to dick around with the Siri Google Assistant autopilot for this fucking bomb.
A bomb that they now know is a weapon of mass destruction. Like, it's not just like a small bomb. It's a bomb. It's a nuke. And they're like, okay, so it's a nuke. We could all die at any time if it decides to just blow itself up, right? So let's Janeway's like, yeah, why don't we just fucking get rid of this thing, right? Like, let's beam it off the fucking ship. Like, B'Elanna's like, yeah, let's do that. Let's just get it off the fucking ship. 7 of 9 is like, yeah, fuck this thing. It's a bomb. Let's get it off the ship. So I don't think it's that they're stupid, right? That's immediately what most everyone on the ship wants to do the moment they find out what it is. It is only the doctor who's like, but it's a bomb, but it's also people. and everyone's like, "Oh, fuck you, god damn it."
Really though, I
Why?
mean, what this episode was missing for me was like an impassioned plea by B'Elanna, like, we have dealt with this before. Please do not. Just somebody. This is almost as infuriating as 1159, when Harry tells a story about his uncle who did 6 months in isolated, flying the ship solo while everybody else was sleeping, and Seven of Nine didn't say a goddamn thing about how she couldn't even survive 1 month. Like, it's a hard pill to swallow, but they let the doctor rope him into this ridiculous scheme. And like you said, as they begin, they're going to take the AI out of the bomb and then throw the bomb away and keep the AI as a hologram. And also, too, while we're on the subject of putting mass murderers into holographic bodies, all the people who got all bent out of shape and nothing human when they made that Cardassian scientist into a
Yeah,
hologram.
that was their own AI. That wasn't even alien tech bomb AI. It's like, even when they make their own artificial intelligences, they fucking come back to haunt them. Although that episode, it was kind of stupid how it, like it bothered them, but whatever.
Well, I'm saying nobody seems to care about, yeah, here great. Let's take this bomb and we'll beam it into a fucking holographic representation of John Wayne Gacy, and it'll be the same fucking mass murdering piece of shit, whatever. They're in the middle of trying to transplant the AI program out of the bomb into a hologram that they're preparing, and I don't know, someone spills coffee on the control panel or some shit happens, and the bomb gets real cranky, becomes self-aware that it was a bomb and not just a friendly AI, and as you pointed out, it takes over the doctor. At first, I was pretty stank about this. I felt like we got cheated out of a guest star. But then, having seen the badass performance that Bob Picardo gets to put on, I say, okay, that it takes a lot to sway the doctor out of his normal lane. So this departure feels pretty good.
If you're going to do this sort of Jekyll and Hyde AI story, this is the framing device you want to use, because you're using not only your best actor, but like this internal drama of the doctor as the best version of an artificial intelligence becoming self-aware and growing, versus a much more challenging situation with that. And it's like the doctor was the easy version, right? And it's not always going to be that easy. Like, that's the line for the story that they're trying to climb onto, and using one actor that you're familiar with to do that, I think, does help, rather than a guest star that doesn't matter.
Again, there's nothing original going on here, and that's such a major detriment. It's the framework of Dreadnought, and exactly what you're saying right now, the Jekyll and Hyde. They already did it in Darkling. This might as well almost be like a Clips episode in a lot of regards.
And if we sound down on it and poo-pooing it, that is the reason. Like, it's because we've seen all the parts of this before, and this is the best version of all of those stories, but because it's the third or fourth fucking time, depending on how you want to count it, we just don't care.
So, to the credit of what you're seeing, though, let's list off all the times that the doctor has malfunctioned or manifested other traits. Darkling, of course, where you're just dealing with basically the fucking devil who is completely unredeemable. And you remember by the end, like, the Jekyll version of the doctor still was kind of sweet on Kess, even though he was using Kess as a hostage. By the end, he was still like completely just an unredeemable piece of shit who did in fact throw Kess off the Legend and attempt to kill her. You had was another time the doctor was off his rails acting goofy.
Or was the first time was in season 2, where it was the first Barclay episode. Remember that one? It was the first Frakes episode too, I believe, where like he's having like a psychiatric crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And his program is trying to basically terminate himself, and he's got to like deal with like basically his psychosis so that he can continue.
You had Sadist Doctor, courtesy of Seska in Worst Case Scenario, who was very jovial but very vicious.
You had the episode where he's malfunctioning and they had to like graft the Zimmerman program onto him so that he can continue.
You had the one where he tries to kill Janeway because he thinks she's infected. Which one was it? Was that the one with the fucking space demon that tries to eat her soul?
Yeah, that wasn't actually the Doctor. That was like the Delta Quadrant space devil that consumes all the souls that no one ever mentions ever again, even though it's probably the most horrifying shit they've ever heard of.
But it's an off-the-rails portrayal. There's my personal favorite, which was Living Witness, android Doctor, who is deploying weapons of mass destruction himself, biogenic radiation or whatever. My point is that, to Bob Picardo's credit, he has played the evil version of the Doctor many, many different times, and each performance has been, I feel, very distinct. And what's cool about this performance you get for this AI is that it's not evil. It has strong conviction, and it's wants to do bad things, but at the end of the day, it's just trying to do its job, and it doesn't want to hurt any more people than it's programmed to actually hurt. And I thought that was a cool distinction. And once we really get past the beginning boring retread stuff, towards the later part of the episode where they start unraveling the mystery of why did he divert off of his course and some of those other things, I think they do a good job muddying the waters to the point where it would have, I was almost expecting the episode to end with the AI on the bomb having become self-aware enough to know that it did not want to kill all those people and willfully diverted off course and ignored its orders because it had evolved and uplifted itself. But I thought its ultimate conclusion was just as fulfilling.
I think the ultimate conclusion was better in the sense that it paid off an early line, which is when Kim is trying to appeal to the bomb's intelligence about how it can grow, and he starts using the Doctor as an example. He says, in response, through all of that, did the Doctor ever stop being a doctor?
Yeah.
And the answer, of course, is no. So, did the bomb grow? Yes. But did it stop being a bomb? No. And the manifestation of that is it was still a bomb. It just blew itself up for the right reason rather than for a shitty reason.
Yeah, the solution... the solution was still an explosion. It was just exploding around different things.
It's like the bomb character from the latest Paper Mario game, the Origami King. Anyway, I won't spoil any more of that except to say you should play that game. It's good.
I was kind of sad we never got to see the holographic representation that Harry Kim wanted to put it in. Like, my fingers were kind of crossed, like, oh God, please, I hope it's one of those volleyball players.
Dr. Pell. I was hoping for Dr. Pell.
Ooh.
You already had it programmed. Yeah, pull that one out of storage.
Low blow. That would have been fucking amazing. And wow, that would have been an amazing episode to confront the Doctor with a past love who has unfairly been completely forgotten by the show.
We should, we've got our next, our season 5 rip coming up because we're almost to the end of season 5. When we get there, we should have a segment on not just season 5, but like going through our favorite guest star or like semi-recurring Voyager characters. Because that's like a topic we really haven't discussed very much. And now there's enough meat on the bone where we can go through like the Ed Begley Jr., Space Boddicker, Dr. Pell, like all of... Yeah, Lon Suter. Well, Lon Suter is like he's evolved into a different plane of existence.
Emeritus.
He's into a murder bird and he's flown away into the heavens. I would love to discuss some of the forgotten favorites of past seasons.
So I agree. I like that idea and we should do it. So this bomb has gaps in its memory. It doesn't understand why it diverted off of its course, why it never fulfilled its mission. I don't really understand the timeline of how long had passed between its initial launch and ending up buried on the planet. But there is a he takes over the doctor. He says, "You were trying to shut me down." They're like, "No, we're trying to help you." And he's like, "Well, I'm locking us down in sickbay, and I'm taking Harry, Kim, and wouldn't you believe it, B'Elanna Torres hostage. And I'm going to tell you, Captain, you are going to fly me to the planet I want to go to, and then you're going to transport me down to the surface, and I'm going to blow these motherfuckers up."
Look at
Janeway...
me. Look at me. I am the bomb now. I was always the bomb, but, I'm just making a point of it.
You're going to fly me over there, and then you're going to set these people up the bomb, and that's the way it's going to be. Or I'm going to blow your ship up. Slide whistle.
Wah, wah, wah,
Yeah. Who'd have thunk it? Playing taxi cab for a bomb was a stupid idea that was decided by a room full of stupid people. So Janeway starts flying towards the planet, trying to buy time. Harry makes his initial plea to this AI saying, you're more than the constraints of your programming. You already mentioned the line where Harry's like, our doctor's grown and blah, blah, blah. And the bomb's like, you ever quit being a doctor? No. Well, I'm not going to quit being a bomb. We're going to do this regardless. It's a strong showing, and I like that B'Elanna gives him credit for it. But then you've got this pretty awesome B plot, which is Neelix makes a discovery that some parts he had traded for some doodads had the same circuitry pattern as what this bomb has, and they reach out to the merchant that Neelix had been dealing with and bring him in an attempt to try and get more information. And I guess it's important to note at this fact that the bomb does not have any direct influence over the ship's systems, that he is only controlling the ship through threats and the hostage situation. So this trader that Neelix was working with flies alongside Voyager and beams over, and yeah, this guy knows what's up.
I like the makeup on this guy. I like his personality.
I like his clothes. He's a sharp dresser. Yeah,
he's good at very in the grand tradition of Voyager one-shot aliens that are look way more put together than a brief scene appearance would suggest. I am reminded of the alien professor who researched wormholes in the Janeway love interest episode.
Bubbleneck, yeah, man.
Yeah, guy, in the same vein as that fucking guy. This guy is pretty slick and comes on the ship, make sure that they're not being overheard, and then is like, yeah, so I know all about what this fucking bomb is. I know about how the people who made them. The technology on this thing is pretty impressive. Now, fortunately for you, I know how to disable it, and all you gotta do is give it to me. And don't worry, I don't want to blow anybody up, but all of its parts are all super pricey all by itself, so I actually can make more money disassembling the fucking thing than blowing someone up with it. It's a very, very, very reasonable offer that is completely unreasonably rejected. The guy straight out says, "No, I'm not going to blow anyone up with it. I just want to take the parts. All you got to do is just let me take it off your hands. That's it."
I couldn't take it. It was a ship full of dummies. You've got a fucking thermonuclear warhead inside your ship threatening to blow your asses up unless you fly across the galaxy and deposit it down onto a planet of aliens you don't know so we can blow their asses up. Prime directive breaks all over the place. And this is the moment where Janeway decides that she's going to have these crazy moral quandaries about dismantling this thing, and says, no, you know what? Fuck you. I'll just roll the dice. What's the worst that could happen, in the absence of your generous offer? I work in the scrap. I appreciate
scrap IT for a living. Yes.
Yeah. I get what this dude's doing. He needs to flash some industry certifications. Oh no, I'm R2. You can trust that I'm not going to betray our data destruction policy. She's like, well, I want to keep the most valuable part. And he's like, no. That's the most valuable. Whatever.
Like if
So
I'm gonna take the thing, that's the thing I want the most. Like I'm not gonna take your salvage unless I can have the part that's gonna, give me the most. And it's like, even if you don't necessarily completely buy, the guy's not gonna turn around and sell the fucking thing as a bomb to someone else, right?
Mhm.
Like even if that's like part of your worry,
deal with it later.
yeah, that is a solvable problem after the fucking bomb is off your ship and no longer in danger of exploding. Like once that problem's solved, now your next problem is these guys might blow someone up with it, and you can deal with that. You can determine if they are, or if maybe you can learn not to give a fuck for a hot second. The
You
Delta
could
Quadrant's the fucking Wild West, and you should just keep going. Like none of that apparently.
dig out John Rhys Davies and turn back on,
Katerina!
put a Leonardo da Vinci back on a zany space pirate episode, and it could be the end, the blue guy on the top of the hill shooting everywhere but Janeway on her stupid tin pan flyer.
Stop it. Stop reminding me.
That's how dumb this sequence is. So she's like, no, fuck you, get off my ship, you blue motherfucker. And he's like, all right, good luck. And then he attacks Voyager.
And then he immediately turns on them, attacks Voyager, and tries to steal it. And that is, of course, the cue for the bomb to show what a badass he is. And programs a antimatter surge to occur through the transporter beam that's trying to take the bomb, and blows the fuck out of blue guy and his ship. So they all are very explodey. They're very dead.
Joe, let me point out one more thing before we move past this traitor guy. This dude rolls up on Voyager cloaked. There's cloaks in the Delta Quadrant. This guy's a traitor. Anything's for sale. Get that fucking cloak. How was that on the table initially? And it didn't dawn on him as they intrude and fly through everybody's personal space that, like, yeah, maybe it'd be really great to have a cloak.
7 goddamn seasons of this fucking show, and never once is Ed ever mentioned that maybe they should invest in a cloaking device.
Every time we breach someone's space, they get really pissed off and terrible things happen. What if
they couldn't fucking see us? Maybe that would help.
Yeah. I'm thinking at this point in the episode that this is an ancient weapon. I'm thinking it's going to be like one of those classic Next Generation tales where kind of like Arsenal of Freedom, that the people who designed this race, and also to prototype, both of the creators races that made the robots who were in a space war were eradicated in mutually assured destruction eons ago. So I figured it was, people who weren't alive anymore. But the bomb doctor will go on to review sensor footage of the intended target and be like, yeah, see, it's still a manned military installation by soldiers with minimal civilian casualties, and like, I'm justified and all that stuff. Like you say, though, the again, this is kind of like the Malon, or Malorn as we will call them. Who else is on this ship?
Much to our fans' dismay.
We're personalizing. That's all. We're just spitting on it so no one else will eat it.
There you go. I like that.
Backwashing it a little bit, living in it. But, who else is on this ship that just gets blown up and Janeway's got no fucks to give because she made this kooky decision? I'm not saying this traitor guy, ultimately wasn't potentially maybe a bad guy, but I don't think his ship deserved to die. Now you've got real blood on Janeway's hands because she was too good to take a good offer that was on the table. And from here out, I want to kind of be dismissive, but at the same time, this is where the episode really starts getting good. Did the bomb become self-aware and decide to defer off of its mission? Did something else happen that took it out of the game? There's a cut to commercial sequence where you see dozens of similar warheads floating around in space. They scan Voyager and then pursue. I thought for a moment maybe that bomb had been canceled, and now the original people who shot the bomb out there have other bombs looking to destroy that bomb so it never completes its mission and drags him back into war, which is kind of close to the truth. And now Voyager's going to be at odds with these people. And ultimately, Harry Kim will start unlocking some of these damaged memory files. And we'll find out that this thing was never supposed to launch, that the war was over 3 years ago, the launch codes were issued by mistake, and that a cease and desist order had been issued to all of the 30-some weapons which were falsely launched. And this one had thwarted its mission by forcing a crash land.
I did like the idea of like the pack of sentient bombs distrustful of information that they shouldn't go do bomb things because of their militaristic sense of info protection, info security is very militaristic in a realistic way of like, nah, I don't believe it. Like, that's what the enemy would do. That the bomb that we spend the most time with, as well as all the other bombs, are immediately distrustful of that. It's very, what was it? Not Hunt for Red October. Crimson Tide. The sub movie Crimson Tide. Remember that one? With Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington?
Barely.
Or, like, the main conflict is that Gene Hackman doesn't trust the partial stand down order that they received, where Denzel Washington does, and there's this whole like standoff / mutiny on the ship, so they don't
float the buoy.
Yes, float the buoy. That part of the characterization of the bombs is cool. So the ultimate point of the episode is that Harry succeeds in convincing the bomb to grow in his programming, to see the suffering that he's causing, and that there's an implication that his inhabiting of the doctor's program is allowing him to sort of experience compassion the way the doctor would. And as a consequence, he decides that, he can't blow himself up. There is reason and evidence to confirm that they weren't supposed to be deployed, and therefore what the doctor bomb needs to do is put an end to this situation by, well, blowing himself up in destroying all the other bombs. And so he convinces Harry, like, no, I'm there, I get it, your speeches have finally worked, and I am ready to expand my programming by expanding my payload onto the faces of all of my bomb brothers and sisters.
Yeah, there's a little subplot we skip over where they're going to do this jailbreak. Oh yeah, by the way, surprise, this is a jailbreak episode too, because we got hostages. They're going to create a bunch of sensor horse shit, make it seem like they're hitting mines. 7 of 9's going to require medical attention in the sickbay, and then she's going to try to like Borg pixie dust, nanite the bomb. And in a very surprising show of force, the bomb overpowers the Borg fairy dust and shocks the fuck out of 7 of 9, who gets to lay there suffering for the rest of the episode.
It was, for once, the Borg pixie dust not working was nice, Very
nice. Very refreshing. Because it's rare to see 7 of 9 fail so spectacularly. It's a fulfilling ending. The exchange between the Doctor and Harry Kim. The bomb AI does a lot of growing in a very small amount of time, and I think it's easy to genuinely feel sad to see him realize that the only way to express his newfound sentience and freedom is to go on a suicide run. But the stakes are obviously there, and it's a very neat and tidy way to wrap up the episode and return us to homeostasis.
I mean, it's a classic bottle episode. Nothing really changes in the end. There's no lasting consequences except, Harry Kim, pointing out that the time he's put in charge, he beamed a bomb on board. Probably the only honest chuckle this episode got out of me. But you know, it's fine. It was fine, except that it was polluted by how many times this has happened to them, the lack of any self-reference or self-awareness to that, which is the fact this comes on the heels of probably the best self-referential episode of Voyager ever, is jarring in that regard, right? Like, we came from Relativity that relies on shit that happened all the way back at, in season 2, to today, versus this episode where over and over and over again this Voyager's been traumatized by artificial intelligences, and they just forgotten every time that's ever happened.
Somehow.
So what are we watching next week, Peter?
We're at the end of season 5, Joe. Moving into season 5, episode 26, Equinox Part 1. And we've got, speaking of Tom and B'Elanna, it looks like they're up there in their dry hump cave, the Jonah Memorial Graveyard of Death, upper warp core bunker. Voyager encounters the starship Equinox, a heavily damaged Starfleet vessel trapped in the Delta Quadrant by the same alien who brought Voyager here. Wow. That is legit exciting. That is hot on the heels of Hope and Fear, which is we find another Starfleet vessel adrift in the Delta Quadrant. I have not really heard the name Equinox before, so I'm very curious if this is in fact going to be a legit Starfleet vessel as the Netflix capsule promises, or if this is another alien trap or some other crazy nonsense.
Well, let me say only this. It is a legit Starfleet vessel. This is actual Starfleet, also trapped in the Delta Quadrant, that Voyager finds.
I can't help but have memories of Battlestar Galactica dug up. When
like when they find the Pegasus.
Yeah,
I don't think that's accidental.
That was deep enough in BSG that they had kind of gotten into their own routine. The captain's law was word, and they had their own ecosystem. And when they found the Pegasus, which had Admiral
Kane.
No. Goddamn, Admiral Laren.
Yeah, Admiral Laren, but yes, Admiral Kane.
God, is there any way she could be the captain of the Equinox too? How good would that be?
If Michelle Forbes could be as many things as she wants to be.
Absolutely. But the impact that had on the power dynamic of the show and clouded the political situation. Like, I can't imagine that Equinox is going to be a enduring part of season 6 and season 7. So something's going to happen that gets that ship in and out of there. But I'm crazy curious and really looking forward to this and what it is going to do to the Voyager crew to find someone else out there that can hold them accountable to the standards of the Federation. What's the viewpoint going to be on the fact that this crew is littered with Maquis terrorists? Decisions Janeway's made that have brought them to this point? Like, so many questions.
Hey, it's going to be a good time. These are some of Voyager's, both this and part 2 are some of Voyager's most notable episodes for sure. Lots to talk about after both parts, for certain. And it's funny you mention BSG and Pegasus and all of that, because it turns out that is more relevant than you think, but maybe not in the way that you're thinking. The story that you may not know is that Ron Moore, having wrapped on DS9 at this point and was brought over to do Voyager, he actually writes some episodes in season 6, early season 6, and things do not work out. And he ends up off the show very quickly. And he really liked the premise of Voyager, but was disappointed in how they were making it too safe for network television. And that is when he came across the idea of rebooting BSG as if to say, I'm going to do Voyager except with blackjack and hookers. That's legit what happened. That's legit how it went down.
I was about to ask you, actually, because I knew that Ron Moore had involvement on Voyager and that it was brief and sour, and you just answered all the questions I was going to ask you. So this is going to be potentially prototype Pegasus. Very interesting.
And to be fair, the Pegasus episode was in the original 1970s Battlestar Galactica as well, so it's not like it was a brand new idea. But all of this coming together around the time that Ron Moore was getting involved in Voyager is just was not a coincidence in terms of why it all of a sudden became relevant to one of the best sci-fi television shows ever just a few years later. All right, we look forward to talking about Equinox Part 1 when we see you next week. And then, of course, you can expect our Season 5 Rest in Peace live stream after that. Till then, take care.